till I came here.
Resident Evil Zero. It's a good game. Actually, it's probably one of my more favorites. 0 and 1 are so good. Like 4 always have a spot in my heart because it was my first. There's too many to even like compare this to, but like when I actually got around to playing 0 and 1, even just 0 for now, but they're both just so they stand out so much more than the other ones. That's why I have to kind of point that out. But even just 0 alone, like it's so man, it's a good time. Like any Resident Evil game is good in their own right, but between the train and Rebecca and Billy and the origin story of it all and being called 0 and just going back to its roots and where it all started, and it was so good. Because I've known so much Resident Evil beforehand that once I finally kind of went back and even just the lore wise, like understanding, at least for the most part, where this all kind of began. I just love entries that are 0 because it's before 1. Like usually everyone's like start at 1. But no, this is cool because now you can go even further back. And gosh, it's just so good. Like Rebecca is such a sweetheart and she's so kind, and like every time I see her character from now on, I'm just like, oh, it's Rebecca. Like whether it's in the movies or like the CGI movies. I don't know if she's in any live action ones. Or just in... I'm trying to think of what other games she's in, if she's in any at all. I can't really think of it right now, but this is Rebecca's game. She's kind of a hidden gem. She's not like Leon and Ada and all them, but she's just such a nice like transition, a nice change from what you're used to. Like, ooh, I'm a badass and I have all this experience and look at me. And Rebecca's just like a healer, very caring and nurturing and kind and gentle, and I love Billy because he's like they're just so completely opposite. The bad boy, the good girl. I don't really care for like the love story or whatever of it, but you can even call it that. Just these characters, man, that's what really, like, yes, the atmosphere is good, the music, all these other things, but I just really enjoyed the characters here. Billy's kind of like a tough guy, but he's got like a sensitive side. It's just, these are people that anyone can relate to. You know, whether Rebecca's waifu material, or you see a bit of yourself in her, or Billy, both, whatever. But yeah, as far as the other characters go, I mean, It's kind of whatever. There's like a Sephiroth looking dude. But yeah, I mean, this is exactly what you'd expect. It's kind of like a little bit of lore, a little bit of context on, I don't know, the lore, I don't want to say too much because even it confuses me and I don't really know it. Like, even if it sounds like I do, or like I can take a guess, I still wouldn't. It's all over the place. That's the only downside, I guess, to like something with Zero in it, is that it kind of, now not only do you have one to kind of go off of forward, but now you got Zero to worry about too, and then in a weird way that's kind of conflicting with one, because what I've noticed with Zero entries is like they don't really come out first, they come out later, or it's like a prequel. It's kind of like Star Wars, how the prequels came out after. And that's where it can get confusing, because all you've known is one and beyond, whatever. So now you're kind of wrapping your head around even more information. But I don't really... I like that that's a thing in this game, but I don't pay too much attention to it. Why I like this game so much is Rebecca and Billy, and because it started before all these things, and we're going back to a much older play style, Capcom at its peak, its best. This is the era of Capcom games I grew up with. Onimusha. And it's funny how RE4 is, you know, PS2, whatever. I don't even know the package. I don't even remember if Zero... I know one had a weird, like, remaster remake thing. I don't remember if Zero, what the deal with that was, like... I don't know if it... This obviously isn't the same game that would have been played years ago. It looks great. Visually enhanced, all these things, but... But it's weird playing something like this, even nowadays, but it's so old. But these are the games that I started out with years ago, coming back to it now. It's really weird. But it's kind of cool. But, yeah, it's just a good time. It's a very classic feeling. I love the train. It's on the cover of the game. Start out in a train. It's just classy. It's different. It's unique. You're controlling two different characters simultaneously at the same time, whatever. It's a very different playstyle than what I was used to before, which I think I kind of needed once I actually got around to playing this. I was like, hey, this is actually really working for me. I actually liked it and felt invested, and I wanted to progress and advance and move further and see where this goes. I was so fascinated by... Here we are in this moving train, we're not in some house doing something. It was very, because especially starting out with 4 and then playing whatever else in between up until I got around to this, it was always kind of that action-y packed, T-Virus, this and that, whatever. Like, this just felt so original, so Zero, so so before, and like I grew up with the Star Wars prequels, so I can really relate to I just love seeing, like, getting to know something up to a point and then seeing where it all originated from. It just fascinates me, like that history and that, you know, how did things kind of wind up here, at least for the most part. Maybe not everything is so cut and dry, but just the basics. Yeah, the cutscenes are good.
You expect me to trust you, a wanted felon? I don't need your help. I can handle this on my own. And don't call me little girl.
All right, Miss Do-It-Yourself. What should I call you?
The name is Rebecca Chambers, but that's Officer Chambers to you.
Yeah. It's just so much fun. It's weird with me with this game though. Like by the time I started it up and actually finished it, it took a long time. Cause just similar with the first game, these older games really kick your butt. Like I get stuck on either a boss or I get lost. The first time I got stuck on this game, it sucked because you get so drawn in and immersed in the world, and you know, hey, I'm playing this cute girl Rebecca, and oh, we're coming across Big Bad Billy, and we're on this train. You want to see where things are gonna go. Actually, no, the first time I got stuck was on the train, and then later it was at a different location. But ultimately, I've been stuck probably like 3-4 times just... And it sucked because it's like, dude, I had to keep the ball rolling, I had to keep streaming, I had to keep doing something, and... half the time with these games, it may not even be as simple as looking something up. If it's a boss battle, that's kind of on you. It's not really necessarily a puzzle. And even puzzles, I do, especially first playthroughs, which I normally only do anyway. Like, I really like to genuinely, purely figure things out. At least up to the point where I just simply can't do it. And, you know, it's like, hey, at some point I need to move on and progress and beat the game. But looking stuff up is like a last resort, but I just kept getting stuck on just... It wasn't ever anything obvious, like, or just something so simple. Even looking stuff up half the time isn't really that helpful anyway, because, like, you have to watch, like, an hour-long thing to find this one thing that takes a minute, or, you know, different videos that give different context and information, or some videos might cut things out, or Google's not always dependable in that way, and... it can be kind of funky unless it's something very specific that's just easier to naturally look up. But I didn't give up. This game was important enough to me where I wanted to finish it, and I wasn't gonna let a boss or getting stuck stop me completely, even if it was only temporarily. So it took me probably years to just finish the game. By the time I actually finished, it felt really good, very rewarding. Because it was a long time coming, and the relief was just huge, because I set it aside multiple times over so long, and I've beaten so many other games since then, or played so many other whatever. This is a big deal, because... you know, this is as good as some of these games are gonna get, and I know it is older, and I have a very low tolerance for older games, and... but seeing as how all these newer games are coming out, remakes, and this and that... you know, when I play games like this, I'm not sitting there like, ooh, nostalgia or this or that, because I didn't play this back in the day. I didn't really get it, even though it is an older game. I wasn't sitting there like... I was just enjoying it for what it is. Completely. I just love the atmosphere. It felt darker. It felt very. This is Resident Evil. You know, you just got two seemingly regular people kind of in this situation, doing this thing in the middle of this just very dark, in the middle of nowhere. God, it's just so good. Like, even in one, oh, you got the STARS members, it's still, even as good as one is, it's still pretty kind of over the top. You know, special forces and blah blah blah. Here, it's just so, like, it's so raw and so. Oh, I just love it. Like, you still get the militarism and stuff a little bit, but it's not really as relevant. It's just made for a really good, like, adventure and journey and quest. Like, it's just kind of you and this person. You're not really necessarily alone. Half the time you were. You know, just trying to get down to the bottom of whatever it is that's kind of going on around you and preventing you from getting back to society and your life and wherever you came from before here. And it just draws you in. It's so good. I'd replay it, honestly, but man, even just that one time alone was I think more than enough for me, because this is considered one of the harder games, which is understandable. Like, hey, it's Zero, spelled with a Z. It's not, you know, it's not meant to fuck around. Like, you're gonna get your ass kicked. Not only just the combat or whatever, just the mechanics and playing and figuring things out and the controls and the puzzles. What were the puzzles? Yeah, it just offers that really nice fine line of challenging yet rewarding and satisfying, and it's just so good. I have so many more good things to say about Zero than I do most of the other ones. Because this is a somewhat casual, which is great for me, but it's not so obvious and so predictable as the other ones are, and how they have been for a long time. This was such a nice breath of fresh air to just to really dig deep into what is Resident Evil, and this is, you know, because each game does stand out on their own a little bit in some way or another, but this one just stood out to me so much more because of so many different things. And God, I love it. I wish I can play it over again for the first time. Like, there's nothing like that first time. That's why it'd be a shame to even play it again, because it's just not the same. Like it's just too good to. Yeah, it had all the things that made it classic, that made it good. All the old school controls and everything, the maps, the items, this and that. One thing I hate about the remakes, they're so tacky, they're so like... It just feels like this kind of bare minimum... Like, half of what makes these games good is the menus and the charm behind the styling and the color palettes and the design. And, you know, the newer games are so kind of like, there's no life in them. It's just, there's no like unique, because you're in those menus a lot. I know menus are kind of just these menus, but that's why they're decorated for a reason, because you're in them so much. And I think it's one thing Capcom was good at, weirdly, kind of weird thing to point out, but the menus, even in Onimusha, it's a pleasure just to like. That's how your inventory management, dude. Your all your stuff. And here it's really good. Yeah, the gameplay is good.
What just happened? I thought they were dead.
Yeah, the game's good. It's arguably a little more scarier than the other ones. I mean, just about as scary as like 1. But as far as the other ones go, these games aren't really scary to me though. They're just really they're scary to me in a way where, you know, if this was something I did play back in the day and a lot less lighting, the darker days, more dim, technology isn't where it is. You know, it's scary in that way, kind of thinking back in the day of, you know, it was just a lot more of a less brighter time, and that's kind of scary. Like when you're a kid, or that's kind of about the most that these games can kind of do for me, is like kind of take me back to being like 10 years old again or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, not really scary in a way like yeah, scary-ish nonetheless. Yeah, I mean, this game on its own is so good, and but you know, it's more Resident Evil. It's kind of more or less the same thing as what you're used to. It's done slightly differently, I would say, but nothing crazy dramatically different by any means. But I just think it's great. Just something to play on your, ooh, even like just a big nice TV. The game looks great. All the lights are off. Oh, that just sounds so good. No lights, no streaming, no nothing. Just that sounds amazing. That's something I haven't been able to really experience a game like that in a long time. Just kind of, it's just you and yourself, and you're kind of in this scary zombie world, and oh, it'd be the ideal way to play. Just shut everything else out, shut everything off. Outside distractions, just you and your space, and that's what this game could be good for. Is that's why I like it so much. It's like it was like a little nice treat just for me. As much as I've been used to kind of sharing my experiences and my playthroughs with others, or in a more public setting, or just not as private or whatever. Man, nothing beats that whole just, oh man. Who knows, there might be a day one day where I could still do that right now if I really wanted to, but I look at time as kind of a valuable thing in that way nowadays. But it'd be worth it. This is the only game I'd consider even doing something like that with, probably, is because it's just that damn good in that way. You know, when you're sharing your playthrough with others, it's really, I don't know. It's not as special. It's not your time, and and you know, it's all for you. And but you know, it's just sometimes it's just kind of how it is. Like most other games is kind of whatever. Even like Skyrim or something. Oh, amazing to play by yourself. Most games are, but most games can kind of just be whatever too. Like, it doesn't really matter or whatever. I gotta say that this is just so... You're just so drawn in, and you're kind of going down this spiral of this thing that you're doing, and yeah. It's just super chill. Like the voices, it's so calming, it's so soothing, and so like, you know, anytime a thunderstorm would come around. The newer Resident Evils and the even Evil Within, for example, you know, as great as those games are, even in that way or whatever, they're so over the top and kind of out there and overdone and overpacked, and it's not quite that same thing. Yeah. Resident Evil 0.